The TransMat Experience, written by Majestic Teach 6677. Saikara was not pleased with what she saw. This new Terran TransMat was seeming more like an overpriced joke now that she stepped up to the transport pod. For 3 times the price of standard FTL flights, you'd think that they would provide some sort of service. And yet, here she was, staring at a standard info kiosk with nobody in sight to help her with her baggage. The only saving grace is this new system somehow skipped the need to fly out of the system hypergate. So you translated from orbital station to orbital station, saving hours on flight time and boarding. The trip to Earth took 8 hours and 2 jumps in acceptable comfort, and the estimated TransMat time would be just under an hour. But this new system, as fast as it might be, was starting to feel like using poorly run public transport. In many ways, she had to admit this wasn't unexpected for a new species in the probationary period with the Galactic Council. Technologically behind but irritatingly adaptable, these humans had come up with a potentially useful express travel method, but the cost was rumored to be obscene. Thankfully, they had financed the project through the Galactic Bank under a new species loan program. When it failed, as the Council predicted it would, a civilized species would be selected to take over the system and see if it was truly viable. After all, why should races who have been in the stars for thousands of years allow an upstart with less than 100 years in space disrupt the order of the galaxy? Best to fund their little project, let them fail, and spend the next 1,000 years growing up under the Galactic Council's guiding hands like every other newly discovered race had. But in the meantime, she had to deal with this check-in kiosk. She inserted her galactic ID card and rolled her eye stalks as the holo of the human flight attendant appeared. Not even a proper AI. Just a holo that waved and pointed at the options. How quaint, she thought to herself, with a heaping dose of sarcasm. The check-in process was remarkably crude as well. Confirm your identity, declare any medical conditions emergency personnel should be aware of. Who is your emergency contact and current employer? Please place your bags on the scale to confirm weight. At least the system waived the extra baggage fee. As she was only the... What? 25 credits for GoldNet service while in transit, 15 credits for a snack box with pre-packaged junk, nothing fresh or created, and the beverage prices. And there's a charge for in-transit entertainment as well. Saikara thought with irritation. Oh, and with no attendance while in transit, I have to order and pay for everything now. Have these humans no sense of decency? What if I want something part of the way through the trip? She angrily selected GoldNet service and a bottle of Karanik at 18 credits. The same bottle no self-respecting restaurant would dare charge more than 6 credits for. But she would be damned if she had to deal with this trip without an intoxicant. The flight attendant holo then started to motion and go through the safety briefing. By the stars, you can skip it, and it seems to have visual sensors to detect if my eye stalks are watching. She sighed with frustration and stared at the demonstration of what was essentially a standard life pod information offered on every FTL flight. Then the bay doors opened to expose the transit pod with the cargo section open. And of course, nobody there to help lift things, so Saikara had to load her own oversized case of biological samples and personal luggage herself. Once loaded, the cargo section slid closed and the passenger door opened. The interior cushion was not what she expected. My cleaning bot was finishing a sanitation cycle, so at least she knew it was clean. But the fabrics and make looked very much like cheap taxi seats. She grumbled and got in as a server droid rolled up with her drink. She took it, pulled out her datapad and connected to GoldNet to complete her emergency report on the Terran fish. 45 minutes later, Saikara arrived at her destination. At least the experience was overall fast and pleasant, and given the speed of travel and the lack of amenities was grudgingly acceptable. She would petition her supervisors to make this the standard travel method for all Galactic Council research, as the time saved made up for the frustrations, and the TransMat system appeared to connect to most worlds and not just Earth. Most importantly, she would be able to meet with the Scientific Affairs Committee today rather than get pushed off to some random later date. Her research stumbled onto an aquatic species called lionfish with a toxin that could easily be converted to a life extension gel for select races. If they could get the fish onto the restricted biohazard list before anyone else noticed, The Galactic Council would be able to control the contracts on an incredibly lucrative product worth trillions to the right people. Meanwhile, in a small Terran government office, Feck Sumatra of the Terran Government Accountability Office looked at the data set with confusion. Remind me again how this all works. I can't believe this makes billions of credits. How the hell are the costs only 20% of the gross income? Both companies are lucky to clear 10% in net profits. Jane Smith, the Senior Vice President of United Terran TransMat Services, which is totally not a front for the Terran Intelligence Agency, giggled before responding. First and foremost, remember that's internal numbers and only viewable by you and select members of the Terran Security Council. According to the Galactic Revenue Service, our books show only 3% profit, and then we might struggle to repay the loans from the Galactic Bank New Species Growth Initiative if anything goes wrong. And we suspect they'll arrange for something to conveniently go wrong. The Galactic Council severely limits our access to Galnet data, so we can't quickly become true equals or understand other species and business opportunities. So we give them mildly cooked books on TransMat. I think that's fair, don't you? Feck nodded in agreement. True. The Council is happy enough to believe that it's a diplomatic transit system that we're trying to offset the cost of through paid passengers. But I don't understand how that translates into such obscene piles of credits. Well, we started by looking at cheap airlines from the 21st century. Unfortunately, our FTL systems and shipbuildings are still leagues behind other species. A penalty of being late to the FTL party, Jane responded with a thoughtful smile and a shrug. That said, we found great ideas on cutting costs and in-flight entertainment. No full seating, upcharging entertainment, charging for all baggage above 10 kilograms, even though the pod is rated for over 1,500 kilograms of people and cargo. And the illusion of value by charging at least triple for everything because it's a private pod, and faster travel than a traditional FTL. As for the pods themselves, Jane paused and smiled fondly at an old memory from her university days before continuing. The pods are inspired by gondolas used by ski resorts. Snap a cargo pod, grab system, and life support on the back of a gondola, and bam, you've got a perfect transport module. All we need to do is certify the pod is meeting the requirements of a life rescue pod, which is cheap and easy. From there, we connect each pod to a cable that pulls it out of an airlock to an FTL slingshot. Since we're just transiting a life pod, our hypergate is 1/25th the size of a standard ship gate and consumes 1% of the power. Yank the pod out. Fire it through the gate to a hub. Hub, as in hub and... Feck offered tentatively. Yes. Jane exclaimed excitedly. We use hub and spoke systems like those of old cheap airlines. This is the part where we need to keep secret from the other sapiens in the universe, as the idea is insultingly stupid, and we're shocked nobody else has come up with it. They think all TransMat pods are sent somehow directly to the final destination, which would be a hideously expensive network. As long as they believe that our numbers look reasonable, in truth, the pod gets sent to a hub. Each hub has 100 gates leading directly to destinations or to other hubs. Given there are only 1,500 major inhabited systems within Council space, our current network of 35 hubs covers a known galaxy with priority lanes for all our diplomatic and military missions. Jane frowned slightly before continuing with a barely hidden smirk. The worst part of this trip is getting shuffled through the hub to the correct outgoing hypergate, but that's by design. Realistically, the hubs can route someone to their destination in under 5 minutes. FTL ships could do this as well if it weren't for the boarding process, travel time to a system hypergate, and waiting line to transit. However, we have buffers and delays in the hubs that extend the ride anywhere from 45 minutes to 3 hours. We even have intentional random delays linked to offers to purchase entertainment. Toss in a few surveys for a free drink or snack if you're feeling frisky. They don't realize that they're just sitting in a hub while they're answering questions or watching entertainment they purchased, or just delayed for no good reason other than to hide how long the trip actually takes. But I still don't get it. It sounds like we can charge double or triple, but the base cost still wouldn't extend profits beyond 30 to 40% of sales, Feck said with obvious confusion, as the numbers in his head didn't match what he saw on the paper. Jane's face turned downright devious before she continued. Finally, we tossed in a healthy dose of information harvesting inspired by the ancient search engine Google. People are expecting questions on boarding, and they don't realize how answering a simple question like, who is your current employer, or do you have any medical conditions which emergency personnel should be aware of, gives us reams of useful data. Even if they don't buy any entertainment or answer many questions, we can log all search inquiries they make over our Galnet connection and log it directly to their galactic ID. But our privacy laws, Vivek started with a concern and then turned into drawling understanding as he caught the evil grin on Jane's face and the credit chip dropped in his brain, only applies to Terran citizens and only within Terran-controlled space. Given the diversity of member races and governments, there are no galactic standard privacy laws. Once a pod leaves Sol, all bets are off. Exactly, Jane said triumphantly. Additionally, because this is an intergalactic transport system and not a hard lock by planet location, each species can use their unique identifiers to bypass filters and encryption the Galactic Council installed to prevent us learning too much about anything. We can't search things in the Galnet, yet our passengers get open season, and once the info comes through our connection onto our system, we can capture it and read it. We just set the Galnet buffer to copy all data to hidden servers operated by the Terran Intelligence Agency, and then delete so the Council inspectors only find empty buffers in compliance with galactic law after the user disconnects. Given the cost of transit on our system, we only get people with higher wealth or political connections using TransMat. This means the data we harvest is the cream of the crop. Vivek's eyes widened in realization, and he motioned Jane to continue. We're learning all the crap other species are trying hard to hide from us, as well as getting marketing data that's unbelievable, and it's all willingly given by bored passengers. Not to mention the scientific articles, confidential business data, and other dirty little secrets the Galactic Council doesn't want us to know. We sell carefully scrubbed data to Terran corporations, and we go from 35% net profit to just under 80%, while helping those companies become surprisingly profitable in galactic trade. And that's not including the info we pass out to classified research stations, universities, or government agencies for analysis. There was a ding and Jane picked up her datapad. She glanced at it, and in case there was something important, Vivek thought he heard her mumble, "Lionfish? Really?" Jane paused for a moment and looked contemplative before finishing her explanation. Honestly, we could make FTL travel free as long as people answered the surveys and searched Galnet over our connections while in transit, but then we'd trigger too many questions and have too many average Xeno Joes flooding the system with junk data. That'll be the play in about 20 years once we've caught up on tech and science. But for now, it's best we keep the system expensive and limited to important Xenos and human diplomatic missions. Vivek was just stunned by the revelation. Just curious, with us making so much credits off this, how has the Galactic Revenue Service missed it? With the expenses so low, I don't understand how we can keep it all hidden. Jane snickered before responding. Classic Black Ops accounting at its finest. We just toss the entire Terran Special Forces budget into the numbers and label it diplomatic transit costs. End of story. I would like to thank our T5 members and patrons, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Vidmori, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.